This group of gentlemen, they're an extraordinary group. And I've listened to, a lot of stuff that I didn't have to go through when I got clean. I'm so grateful that you volunteered to do this service for us today. We are also the world. Pioneers persevere regardless the obstacles, and these Detroit NA pioneers were no different, paving a pathway to recovery beyond anyone's wildest dreams and against all odds. So I would like to introduce Bomani, Brett, and Dwight from Detroit. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Where's DB at?
There he is.
I'm not nodding. I'm a recovering addict named Dwight. I'm glad to be here. My clean date record is June 15th, 1984. Bomani, will you do the introduction of yourself?
Recovering addict named Bomani. Hotep family. My clean date is 2/17/1986, and I'm blessed that Dwight's been my sponsor for 36 years.
That's amazing. You need a medal for that one, Bomani.
I know.
You need a medal for that one, man. Yeah, my name is Brett, and I'm an addict. And my clean date, like I tell people, I'm a class of 86 also, August 29th, 1986. And I'm so grateful to be here and part of this fellowship. Grateful.
I really want to thank everyone that I've heard thus far. The ladies from Detroit's Narcotics Anonymous, the pioneering ladies, touched my heart, brought tears to my eyes. And then Harold just came and helped me to really appreciate gratitude. And no matter what, the real no matter what, staying clean no matter what. He helped me to appreciate that on a much deeper level. I would like to start this segment off by really, Ron asked a couple of questions about painting the picture. And I would like to really start by painting the picture of how it was like in 1984 when I got clean, and really even before I got clean. One of the things I want to say also as I talk about this, something strange about us as recovering people. Most of us, especially if you got involved in service work, we kind of have this feeling, whether we admit it or not, that NA started when we came into the meetings. Okay, it's much like how a child feel like the world started once I was born. Like there was no world before I was born, but once I was born, the world starts. And I think most people feel that way when I came to NA is when NA started. Okay, that's not true, but that's the way most people feel. And I also feel like, if you want to hear the truth, ask somebody who was there. And as always, you hear the real truth besides people's opinions. You'll hear my truth, which is really my opinion, my perception. But I always believe whatever I say is the truth, no matter what. Being an old timer, people have had meetings that got started way back when, and they'll tell me when they got started, and I'll say, "Were you there?" And they can't say they was there. Don't dispute my truth, because in many cases I was there. And I say that humbly also. I found the NA is a microcosm of the larger world. Okay, I got clean in 1984. But 2 years before getting clean, I worked on the psych unit at Harper Hospital, and I worked on what they call the chemical dependency unit at Harper Hospital. I was a mental health worker. I was working on a 2-year degree, a associate's degree in mental health. I knew a lot about addiction, but one thing I could not learn and do, and that was how to stay clean. I had periods of staying clean for 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, daily usage, until Narcotics Anonymous. My very first sponsor came from the other fellowship, from AA. And he had about 14 years clean. And he went to we heard about Fellowship Anonymous. They had a Fellowship Anonymous meeting where I worked at the hospital, and he found out it had guidelines and principles, but there was no steps. And there was no mention of a higher power. And he couldn't believe that. He couldn't accept that. And he wanted to get an NA meeting going. The second guy I had as my sponsor was a guy named Floyd B., who was on fire for NA. His sponsor, Bill S., had went to New York and had found NA and came back and wanted to get an NA meeting going. Alec B. from AA asked me to take him out to the suburbs where there was an NA meeting and get a starter kit. And we got the starter kit, and they had scheduled the meeting to get started at Harper Hospital in their first Sunday of June of 1984. Now, mind you, a month before then, I wanted to get clean and walk into that meeting. But on that Sunday, I'm an IV drug user. I was an IV drug user. I could not stop shooting dope that day, no matter what. I just kept shooting and saying, I'm gonna stop before it's time for the meeting so I can go there and look okay. I could not stop, and I didn't make that first meeting, no matter how hard I tried. Working at the hospital, I had what we call an ego problem. I felt that people would know me. So I was afraid to go to any AA meetings in Detroit. And my sponsor, who Alec B, kept saying, I belonged in NA. So I took my butt to my first NA meeting, and it was in the suburbs of Detroit, Warren, Michigan, on 9 and Hoover. Across, there was a very segregated line there at that point in time. Blacks lived in Detroit, whites lived on the other side of the 8 Mile Road. And I went to the meeting, East Alamo Club, on 9 and Hoover, and I walked into this meeting and I looked around and I saw about 150 people, 150 addicts, and I didn't see no one that looked like me. And I felt like, where am I and what am I doing here? But I was befriended, and they told me to sit down, get coffee. They talked about getting a book, about reading the book and getting a sponsor. And I feel like I didn't need all that stuff because I worked in the field, so to speak. But they really befriended me, and I just kept coming back to the meetings. As I made other meetings, and people don't believe it, this was the NA meeting list from that point in '84. It was one page, folded in half. It was about 23 meetings, and it covered about 3 counties. And I kept going to those meetings and seeing these white people who incidentally were addicts. Until I kept coming to those meetings, and all of a sudden, I saw addicts who incidentally happened to be white. When I had 2 months clean, 2.5 months clean, I was drafted into service work. And I went to this service committee meeting. I was drafted. I had 2.5 months clean. We had been picking up the coffee, cleaning up the tables and everything else. And I went to what we call an area service meeting. And the H&I chairperson was Mike C. was moving to Chicago, and that position became vacant. And they looked at me and said, Dwight V., do you have the willingness to serve in this position? I thought about it and I said, yes, I do. But the clean time requirement was for 90 days to be H&I chairperson at that point in time. The area service person had only 1 year, but H&I had to have 90 days clean. And they said, well, Dwight don't have the clean time. And someone made a motion to waive that 2 weeks. And someone said, well, you keep coming. And someone said, I'll give him 2 weeks of my clean time. And all of a sudden, I became H&I chairperson. That's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. And a month later, I had this car my mommy had given me. My mother gave me this 73 Oldsmobile Omega, had a busted head gasket, and I would get to a meeting, and the car would overheat, and I couldn't leave the meeting no matter how bad I tried for 2 hours. That meeting lasted me for 90 days. And when I had 90 days clean, that car died. And I heard in the meetings that you must put the same effort to recovery that you did in your addiction. And because I was a car thief in my addiction, I went and stole me a car. I got my snatch bar. I went and stole a car. And that car lasted me for 2 years. I made the first Mercury convention in Bay City in '85 in that car. I did H&I work in that car. I had literature. I slung it out the back trunk of that car. I did 12-step work in that stolen car. And I did some 13-step work too in that car. I know I'm the only person who did 13-step work, but that was it. Okay. Detroit, although in Detroit, there's probably at that point, probably about 90% African American. In Detroit, there was like 3 meetings in Detroit in NA. And most of the meetings at that point, before I came H&I chairperson, and I have the names of the groups, they were mainly close to the suburbs. They weren't like in the inner city. They were like on the outskirts of the inner city, where Thor Rock, you're in the suburbs, like near Grosse Pointe, near Warren, Michigan, those kind of things. And it was only after becoming H&I chairperson that we had a thing of, and this is like the nature of addiction, it's never enough. We wanted only 1 meeting a day inside the city, and we thought it'd be enough. Then we wanted a meeting in the morning and a meeting in the evening, and we thought that would be enough. And then we wanted 3 meetings a day in the city, and we thought that would be enough. And the rest became history. I'd like to pass the baton to either Bomani or Brett and talk about the explosion and how NA in Detroit exploded.
Yeah. I know for me, I came in 86. Well, I came in 85. It was 84 in Samaritan, and then 85 again. I came back to Samaritan in the summer of 85, and it was a 21-day detox, and I did 41 days there. I did 41 days. And when I left Samaritan, I never forget my counselor, Bill, told me, he said, because they said I wasn't going to make it. And he said I wasn't going to make it. And he hoped I had enough sense to realize when I out there and did make it, that I would come back, but that was my first NA meeting, was June 15th, 1985. And I had finally found somebody. The first time I heard somebody that had used to use crack and they wasn't smoking it no more. And I was like, okay, you got my attention. So I started going to meetings, and I interrupted my clean time a couple of times. The last time I did was in August of 86, and I had a service position. I had a service position. I never forget, God told me, he said, man, that was the worst I ever felt, man. I'm telling you, that was the worst ever. I couldn't understand how anybody could go out there and after having a head full of NA, go out there and use and stay. I just couldn't, it didn't make sense to me, and God told me, well, man, you just get over it. I'm like, nah, I don't want to get over it. But, I wasn't going to tell anybody, man, that I was going to keep it to myself because I didn't want to give my service position. And that happened on a Friday night. And Monday was the meeting at was it Receiving Hospital? It was Monday night. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, and I think that was the World Convention weekend, something like that, huh?
Detroit Memorial Hospital.
Detroit Memorial, yeah.
Yep.
And man, when that meeting was over, man, I wanted to jump off the Belle Isle Bridge, man, because it was inside, because I didn't want to tell anybody. But I finally fessed up. And after that, man, I just stayed. I stayed around, and I kept coming to meetings. Because the meetings kept exploding. I mean, they kept growing. I mean, and we kept coming. I remember Carolyn T caught me at a dance, man. That's how I got involved with service. At a dance one night at the end of a dance, and she said, "What is he doing?" And she told me, "Start cleaning up." And I got on the entertainment committee. And that's how it was. That's how it was. So that was but the meetings exploded, man. And like, I think Rose was talking about Friday Night Live, man. That was my favorite meeting to go to, Robert Klink on Friday Night Live. That was it, and we were a fellowship. I mean, we were a family, and we kept growing, but we stuck together. we stuck together in Detroit. We stuck together. We would go to the stuff that they had out at Mount Zion and out in Berkeley. But when it came, we stuck together. We stuck together, and that's what it was like for me, man. We were a family. We were a family, and you know, I was able to stay clean, man. You know, they stay clean.
And see, and Detroit Memorial got started in July of 1985. And Mike, I was going on vacation and to visit my father in South Carolina, and I was wondering, I said, who's going to open this meeting up? I was supposed to open this meeting up the chair. We had a little small committee, and Mike T stepped in and opened that meeting up at Detroit Memorial that Monday night. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
When I think about Narcotics Anonymous as a whole, I just like what Dwight was saying, you know, when I came into the program, you know, I was in a treatment facility, yet we were allowed to go to outside meetings. I was in Harbor Light, the same place where Charles was at. As a matter of fact, me and Charles was in treatment together. But we were allowed to go to meetings, and we didn't have a whole lot of Narcotics Anonymous meetings in '86. We really did. So we went to FA, which is Fellowships Anonymous, and we went to AA. It was Alcoholics Anonymous, because, you know, we made meetings where we can make meetings at. That's just how it was. I got drafted in the service, you know, by my late, and I consider great grand sponsor, Floyd P. Yeah. But prior to that, I made my very first Narcotics Anonymous meeting, March the 3rd, 1986 at Detroit Memorial Hospital. That was the first time I had never even heard of what Narcotics Anonymous was. And when I went to that meeting, I know someone asked a question about how they felt. They asked the ladies, and by the way, the ladies did a wonderful job. Harold did a wonderful job. Yeah. When I went to that meeting, I felt right at home. You know, and I said, this is where I need to be. You know, and I've been coming to Narcotics Anonymous ever since. And it's interesting because once I got clean, and I stayed clean, I was clean for about a year. Like I said, when I had 30 days clean, Floyd made me. Yep. He didn't ask me. He made me the coffee maker at Harper Hospital. Now, that was the largest NA meeting. Everybody was there.
Yeah.
And see, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but if you make the coffee wrong, you in trouble.
You in big trouble.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, he showed me how to do it. And it was easy for me because I could walk to Harper Hospital from the treatment facility. And after I was clean for about a year, Alon said, "You've been clean a year, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, you the GSR." And that was when we live as one. And I went down to my very first area service meeting. And I was just overwhelmed by what I saw. But as 87 came,
can we go
88,
back? Can we go back a little bit?
Okay.
For the record, this was the 85 meeting list of October 1985. Okay. Right. This was the meeting list in October 85. I counted out 63 meetings at that point in time. 18 were in Detroit already.
Right.
Most of them were H&I meetings. So every hospital and treatment program, we had a meeting there. And we started going into churches also at that point in time. But this is what it was at that point in time. The explosion also, women was coming.
You're absolutely right.
We were young. We was in our early 30s. Wherever the women was going, the guys was going too.
And the truth
was out there.
Yeah, the truth of the matter was, it didn't, as far as I was concerned, wherever a meeting was at, that's where I wanted to go to. I didn't care. Sure, people had their learned behaviors about prejudice and all that stuff there, but that was totally irrelevant to me. We went where the meeting was at. I know Brett and Dwight know that. Wherever the meeting was, that's where we went. But we exploded in 87 and 88. And it was due, as you said, to the crack epidemic. When the crack came out, members came in by the boatload. So we had to do what was necessary to keep meetings going. So we just started opening up meetings, everywhere.
We had
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
whoever would allow us to open up a meeting, we opened up a meeting, and that's
Yeah.
when the Detroit area started exploding.
Mhm.
Go ahead,
Now, when I
DB.
came in, a lot of us was heroin addicts, IV drug users. A lot of the meetings also was at Met clinics. And when crack exploded, like around 85, 86, 87, and all the meetings, now what I found also, a lot of people who did heroin years before, who had heroin and transferred over to crack cocaine. You know, we understand that. We understand that, you know, and it was just so amazing how that happened. Subcommittees, H&I was great. You know, we had a committee and like people like Larry G, Tom M, Mike T, Dale, Larry B, my co-chair at that point, John M. People was just busy, Benny M, with H&I meetings.
Mhm.
PI, public information. We got busy with public information. We didn't have no real structure, but we were going inside schools at that point in time, sharing about the NA message inside schools. The university, Wayne State University, we used to do public information committee meetings inside of Wayne State University for the School of Pharmacy because they wanted to learn about Narcotics Anonymous and they wanted to get a profile on what does the addict look like? What makes you tick? Yeah.
Yeah.
Recovery makes us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
What's the next segment?
Someone mentioned earlier also, and I think it was Monica, about the helpline and the pager system. Now, mind you, we got a real helpline going now, but back then we had beepers and we would meet each other and pass the beeper from person to person for coverage, you know,
Mhm.
and everything was Detroit's 313 phone number. I found some of the phone numbers here on the meeting list. And when you call this number, it was an answering service. And they would in turn page us on the beeper. And we would call back, hello, this is Narcotics. I'm adding name Dwight. This is Narcotics Anonymous. Mm-hmm.
I remember that number so clearly because I was at a dance and I spent my whole evening at that dance on the payphone.
Yes.
Because I was on the helpline and I had the beeper. Just like Dwight said, we would pass the beeper to people,
Mhm.
you know, and it was my shift. So I spent that whole dance, Brett, in Berkeley on the payphone.
Payphone. Yeah. So we didn't have cell phones back then. It was a
No.
payphone. It was a
That's right.
payphone.
But people were calling because they wanted to get
Help. Yeah.
information about this program.
Yes.
And I was really surprised because the majority of the calls that we got was from Detroit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which just shows you they didn't know what Narcotics Anonymous was. They had heard about it because we did public information presentations at various places, but they wanted to know what the program was about. So what we did on the helpline is we directed them to a meeting. That's what we did.
Mhm.
And you know, the wife I had at that time, left when I had 2 months clean because she didn't think I was gonna stay clean because I kept making promises before, like we do. Oh, this is my last time. I'm not gonna do this no more. I'm gonna change until I get the next blow. Anyway, she had left, and I stayed clean, of course, and I stayed Narcotics Anonymous. But this is before the Detroit Service Office got started. And we would order our literature from the California, from the World Service Office. And I would come home on the porch, would be a big old box, and it would be NA literature. I came in on the second edition, and we would order NA literature. We had instead of the key tags back then, we had the poker chip.
Poker chip, yeah. Poker chip, yeah.
We had the poker chip.
I still got one.
I would drive around in the hot car. The other become service junkies. Other service junkies, not the same way you sling dope to different people. We would sling literature packets to people. Everybody get their little literature packet to take back to their group or to start other groups. And we were on fire for Narcotics Anonymous. You know, the whole thing about, I said, we are also the world. In 85, the song was out there, We Are the World. We are, everybody remember that song was, at 31, 32 years of age, I felt the NA was gonna change the whole world. It changed my world and my life, but I thought it was gonna change the whole world. But staying in Narcotics Anonymous, I started finding out that NA was a microcosm of the rest of the world. That although the same way in the larger world, the majority rules. The majority population appears to rule everything. Well, in Narcotics Anonymous, the majority appeared to be ruling the service structure. When you looked around, all of the other areas, you saw a lot of whites, and very few blacks in the service structure. But by 85, 86, 87, with Brett, Bomani, Dale, Tom, and different people, Mike T, Larry B's brother, Booker, and so many people, Floyd, started getting positions. Or some of the ladies, Joan, others, they started getting positions in a different service structure. And it was amazing to watch the change. One thing that I do remember, like the Detroit Service Office, which later became the Michigan Service Office, it started in 86. And I think it was myself and maybe Larry G were the only blacks on this service office, okay? Later it became the Michigan Service Office, but even to this day, the service office is still in the suburbs of Detroit and not in Detroit. Small differences, you know, but it still meant something. What we saw also with the, not so much the service office, but in the structure, that Detroit only had one vote, whereas other areas had other votes, but many more votes. But Mike, will you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we the Detroit areas, we had more members. Let's just put it out like it was. We had more members, and we started having more meetings. So we were giving more money to the Seven Tradition, to the area, and the area was giving more money to the region. But we didn't ever got nothing back in return. For instance, you know, we had conventions. The first convention I went to was Merkner 3. That was in Flint, Michigan. But there were, after that was Merkner 4, Merkner 5, Merkner 6, all the way up until Merkner 7. But every time we would put in a bid for a convention, we got outvoted because we only had one vote. You know, so we were getting kind of frustrated. And I'm trying to keep being politically correct, Brett. We were getting frustrated because we weren't getting anything. So we made a decision. Now, this is the conscious of the area that we needed to divide. You know, Brett, you can speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, because because I became the GSI at Samaritan, we can group, and the area service meetings at that time, they were still off the chain. But when I became the Detroit area co-chair, man, those area service meetings, it was to do roll call was like about 4 hours. You know, it was just out of control, man. So we had grown so much that it was necessary. Like you said, we needed the votes so that we could have a voice. We could have a voice, so that we could have a voice in what was happening in the service structure, because we didn't have a voice and we kept getting overlooked. We kept getting overlooked. So when we divided, and it was we went from the one area to 4. It was and I was the first chair of the West area. Eric was the co-chair, Joan was the secretary, and Laretha was the treasurer. And so, we were the Detroit West area, and we had to vote, and it made things a whole lot more plausible, man. Area service meetings only last a couple, 2 or 3 hours, and so with that, we got our vote, because our area got a vote, because now we had a vote.
The 3 votes. We got 3 votes, Brett.
Yeah, we had the votes.
Those 3 votes took us to the region. And Western Wayne kind of always went along with what the Detroit areas did.
But see,
So
at that
that
point,
gave us technically 4 votes.
there was Western Wayne
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, it was Western Wayne. They always went along with us. And that's because Western Wayne is, Wayne County,
Yeah.
And
Oakland County, Macomb had an area.
yeah, Oakland County had an area, Macomb had an area, St. Clair had an area, Monroe had an area. And that's when we kept getting voted out of everything. But once we got those 4 votes,
Yeah, they changed the dynamics.
it
And
changed
you
the
look
dynamic.
also, going back to the history, and those who may be historians in Narcotics Anonymous know about the structure, the Twigs, which was a temporary working, what was that?
Service
Temporary
guy.
guy. Yeah. They kind of went against what they call metropolitan areas. That areas being formed just based on it being a city. Okay. And a lot of this was also designed to promote unity. But it kind of hurt us in many different ways. So we started some other kind of innovative kind of structures. But Mike, can you talk about shared service and the sub-region, how we started that?
It started off as a sub-region. We weren't recognized technically by the region because we were the counties, southeastern Michigan, the counties with the most money. Let's put it like it is. Oakland County, Western Wayne, Detroit, Macomb, St. Clair. So we developed a sub-region, which we would meet once a month every year, and we did things together. We started having New Year's Eve dances. We started doing things as a sub-region. We weren't the region, but we were a sub-region, and we weren't recognized by the region because of that. But that helped all those areas grow. It really did. It helped all our areas grow. We were involved in the New Year's Eve dance. We had public information. We had helpline. We had H&I. We had all the subcommittees that the region had. We had it at the sub-region.
Literature committee.
Literature committee. We had all that stuff was going on in the sub-region. And I guess that's the reason why there was some conflict between the region and the sub-region, because we were southeastern Michigan, and during that time, we was providing all the money, all the services, we were doing everything. So that came to a point where we had to make a decision.
No taxation without representation.
Yeah, there it is.
Really. We was bringing most of the money into the region, and we didn't have the fair amount of votes. Considering how many people we had, how many meetings we had, we needed more. Other things are happening. You talked about like New Year's Eve dances, and I don't know if this was racial or what, but things I noted also, and this is my opinion and my thoughts. A lot of the whites were, and our friends of mine, they helped a lot of the earlier meetings in Detroit. They helped get a lot of the earlier meetings in Detroit till we got a service committee that was really flowing. But then many of them quit coming to meetings in Detroit. It's like, I will cop dope in Detroit, but once I get clean, I'm not coming back to Detroit. The same thing I saw happening also, and this is not against unity, it's just human nature. The same thing I saw happening also at dances. We used to have all these dances together, but the music that we would like as African Americans and that they would like as whites, and the way we danced, it was different. And things such as the New Year's Eve dances. We know when we were smaller, we could have the New Year's Eve dances together. But then it became political about who's going to be the disc jockey. Was it a white disc jockey or was it a black disc jockey? If they both have their music and entertain. Those things also help to cause some divisions that I saw in Narcotics Anonymous. Unified, separate but equal or unequal. What do you think about that?
That's what happened with the sub-region. We became the shared service because right after Twigs came out, they came out with another book called Guide to Service. And in Guide to Service, they had the shared service inside of that. So we changed the name from the sub-region to the Shared Service Committee.
Mm-hmm.
Still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But the name was sort of like what Narcotics Anonymous said, suggested rather. They didn't say, they suggested that we do. But we still weren't recognized by the region, right, Brett?
Yeah, we still weren't recognized. But eventually, you know, we prevailed and we became recognized. You know, eventually we did.
What led to that happening?
Merckner 7.
Yep.
Can you explain
Merckner
that?
7.
See, we kept getting outvoted. I remember real clearly because they had a convention in Midland.
What did Merckner stand for? Merckner stand for
Michigan Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. Now, they had a convention in Midland. A couple of years went by. We put in another bid, and we just knew we were going to get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they picked Midland again, and that's when the decision was made that we needed to not only divide, but we need to have a voice because we had no say-so.
I want to break in for a second because I'm listening to this segment of your history and it's absolutely fascinating to me. And my question for you guys is, you know, what was the risk that would have been taken had you not done what you needed to do by splitting away? What do you think would have happened had you not taken that chance?
It would have caused some disunity. Because it was causing disunity because we put in a presentation was just as good as everybody else's, and we kept being neglected. And people were crying, people was upset. It was causing a problem that could have been solved simply by just allowing us. We divided so we could have enough votes so we could do something. I mean, the Detroit areas were growing, and we wanted to do a convention.
Yeah, and we traveling all over the state.
Yes.
We were traveling all over the state to every convention, everywhere Merckner had a convention. We were traveling all over the state, but then go ahead, Dwight.
I heard someone say years ago, if your insides is not growing in proportion to the outside, you don't know whether you're going to explode or implode. Okay, Detroit Narcotics Anonymous was growing so quick as far as membership and the committees, we had to be able to grow without the larger region. See, we keep saying they and we. I hate saying they and we, but it's us. Okay, it's against the first tradition. I hate saying us and them when it still need to be us. The Michigan area, the Michigan region was the region for Michigan. Okay, Merckner was Michigan region. Detroit came in and made a region. It was a Metro Detroit region. So at that point, it was two regions operating in the state of Michigan. I think it's important to acknowledge that. The Michigan Regional Convention, Merckner, was going all over the state. But we were not getting the right kind of representation, considering how many people in Detroit that needed help, that were suffering, and that was saying, help me, help me.
Every single region in New York State was an area of greater New York. They had to go. They had to go. They were growing.
And we did. And we did. And as we got stronger and the Area Service Committee became one, we opened up the Michigan Detroit Regional, and we had our first, DACN started in 93, which stood for the Detroit Areas Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. We found out we could do our own convention.
Wow. And that was
the matter was, if it hadn't happened like that, Lynn, it would have caused a whole lot of disunity, because you got to understand something. You know, we had addicts that were coming out of treatment, coming into this program, and they wanted to do something. See, we talking about service work now. They wanted to do something, but they could only do so much.
Right.
But once we did Merckner 7, and here's a key point to that. When we did Merckner 7, they had a profit
Yeah.
of $40,000.
Now, who is the they you're talking about again?
Michigan region.
Thank you. Thank
Michigan
you.
region.
Michigan region had a profit of $40,000. It was the largest money they ever made before they did the next one at Ann Arbor. But that's because it was supported
By Detroit.
by Detroit. And
And
that's
what you
when we
see-
said, well, maybe we can have our own area convention.
Mm-hmm.
And what you'll see is that Detroit traveled to anywhere as a convention. Detroit traveled all over Michigan to support the conventions. But people would not come to Detroit to support the Detroit convention. They started calling, here I go. No, listen, really. Dackner was called Blackner.
Yes.
Dackner started calling it Blackner because it was ran by blacks. And that's the kind of very subtle stuff you would hear. Okay.
Mm.
The speakers were mostly black because they come from Detroit. It was called Blackner.
And see, that's a part of learned behavior, but that's another part of, a person's personal recovery and where it goes with that. But what I do know is not only did Detroit go all over Michigan, we went all over the United States.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Conventions.
Yeah.
People knew about Detroit, and we always was asked, you remember this, Brett, when y'all gonna have a convention?
Yeah. Because I remember when we took a bus and went to Philly.
Yeah.
You went to Philly. We took a bus load of us went to Philly, so yeah, we went all over the place to go to conventions. All over the place to go to conventions. And when we started having our own, everybody wanted to know about Dackner. And how we got Dackner started was just amazing, man. That was truly because we were struggling. And once we formed the committee, and then the exploratory committee.
Yeah.
And I was on the exploratory committee. Once we formed the exploratory committee, and this is after I was the area chairperson, and I had passed the mantle on to Eric. And we had the exploratory committee, and we explored the feasibility of having it. And the feasibility course was there. And then we had our first dance, which was a fundraiser, and we did that, and we just took off from there. And it was a huge success. The only bad thing about it was there wasn't enough places to eat.
Yeah,
that's right. That's the only bad thing about it, was no places to eat. But it was a huge. As a matter of fact, they just had Dackner 29.
29.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And see, Detroit was called also. I remember my last sponsor. He started serving and ended up being on the World Service Board.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him telling us Detroit was called the fastest growing area in the world. Whether it was quantified, but that's what it felt like. Because we ended up having like over 300 meetings in that Metro Detroit area.
Mm-hmm.
And to think about you go from 23 meetings to over 300 was amazing. As chaotic as it was still quite amazing.
Hey, Dwight, talk about the Unity Committee.
The Unity Committee, the first one or the second one? You do the first, I'll do the second one.
Well, the first one was the purpose of the Unity Committee was to give the 3 Detroit areas, because we just had 3 areas at that time, to give them a single point of accountability. Because after the convention, so the money went to the Unity Committee.
Okay.
The first chair was my grand sponsor, Floyd B.
Right.
And that way we had not only a single point of accountability, but we had a continuity of service. So we could distribute the money and start doing other things with the money as far as hospital institutions, public information, helpline was concerned.
The second Unity Committee got it started later, and the main mission of that was to really support the first tradition of unity.
Right.
And it was designed to stop prejudice in all of its forms. And I'm going to tell you what it meant. A lot of the stuff, as far as the suburbs versus Detroit, those things, to talk about those things, Also, there was something else happening around 2004, 2005. A lot of violence happening in the fellowship, such as people fighting each other. And our World Service Office, this is before the disruptive member pamphlet came out, long before. We went to the World Service Office and there was nothing about that. But people were fighting at meetings. If this girl was somebody else's girlfriend and somebody broke up, they were fighting at meetings over whose man is this person's man and all this kind of stuff. We were fighting at service committee meetings, throwing coffee at each other and everything else at service committee meetings. And it was to get some harmony going, with the fellowship. So that unity committee worked real hard. There was also a class system. Would you believe I had the nerve to think I'm better than somebody else because I'm a service junkie and you're not? How dare you be a member of Narcotics Anonymous and not give it back? That's the kind of stuff people were saying. You have no gratitude. And it became a class thing if you didn't do service work. And if you didn't give your life to service, that kind of stuff. So we was trying to work on all these various issues with the second unity committee.
But, I will say this. Because of all the work that all of us did, it's a little bit different now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit different now. There was some struggles. There was some dissension. There was all the things that everybody goes through in Narcotics Anonymous. But I see a path that's even clearer now than the way it was. And to me, that's a good thing.
Yeah. As long as we follow the traditions, as long as we follow the traditions as because the traditions protect us from ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about it. You can't go wrong if you follow the plan. You can't go wrong because that separates all personalities out of it and it sticks with the principles, and you have to work at that because I know I did. I had to work at it when I got into certain, but I found out that it works. It works. The traditions work when we stick to them. And even if somebody goes outside of them, we still got them to come back to. So
as long as the ties that binds together,
all will be well.
All will be well. And we have found that to be so true. Yeah. We have had times of fighting at meetings and then going to have a coffee after that and being together. My last sponsor died in 2000, Floyd B. And to honor him, I asked Bomani, I said, let's get back involved in service. So we got back on the MSO board for 6 years. And we had some real fights because we don't agree with each other. We had some real fights at these service committee meetings. After that, hug, go out and have dinner together,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how it was.
Yeah, go back to your respective corners and come out. Yeah.
Also sponsorship, something as old timers. And I heard him talk about that in the other segment. My sponsor, Floyd, I went from an AA sponsor to an NA sponsor. And my sponsor, Floyd, passed in 2000. It took me 6 years to find someone I thought was good for me or that fit with me. I looked around the area and I couldn't. In the interim, Bomani B and Larry B, both people that I sponsored, sponsored me. They kept me in check. I had to submit to their authority.
Yeah.
It worked real well. Till I found Bob S, who started sponsoring me. And at that point, he was on the World Service Office. I missed sometimes not having a sponsor face to face. But because of technology, it's okay. But whenever I need to talk to somebody about something, I would hear the little voice in my head from my former sponsor or from being around meetings on how I should do. It goes back to that third step prayer. Take my will of my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live. The Spirit is guiding me now on what to do.
The truth of the matter is, right now, after this pandemic, things are slowly getting back to where they were. But there's some immense work's going to have to be done again in the Detroit areas, to bring the service structure back together.
Yeah.
Because the meetings are going to happen. They're going to be created. But we're talking about we got 4 areas. And
Yeah.
the service structure, tell you the truth, the only area that's really functioning is the West area.
It's the West area.
Oh, stop, Brett.
And because it was a good foundation.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. It's just
I
going to take a little time.
I used to always say it was the blind leading the blind and God leading us all.
Yeah.
I think higher power continues to lead us regardless.
Yep.
To
Yeah,
prove
for
that
real.
point, from my standpoint, which is always the right standpoint, right? No. Do you remember as people got older in this fellowship, we used to talk about carrying meetings to people in hospitals? This is 10 years ago. Somebody gets sick, carry a meeting to the hospital. Somebody be in a nursing home. What we got to do to carry the meeting to them? COVID came. And with this virtual platform, it has solved that problem. People in nursing homes or in hospitals or wherever else, we can carry the meeting, the message of recovery to them. I have met people over the last couple of years that I would have never met before if it wasn't for this virtual platform. I'm grateful because out of all this chaos, this confusion of the pandemic, it has broadened the base. It has broadened our base. So I think you gotta look at, is the glass half empty or half full? My glass is half full. Matter of fact, most days my cup overflows.
Yeah.
You know, and I thank God for that. I'm such a better person than I was years ago. I have the depth of my roots is so much deeper than it was years ago.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, this virtual platform ain't going nowhere. So people might as well get used to it because it's providing a service. Because what is our primary purpose?
Carry the message.
Carry the message.
Carry the message.
And the virtual platform does that. So
yeah, the only concern I have about that is how does the newcomer get, how we could take a newcomer to a meeting and he would meet everybody and get hugs and all that. How does this virtual platform play when it comes to newcomers? How receptive are they to it? Do they feel the same way that we did when we first came in?
Well, I look at it like this because I've been to physical meetings in Detroit as well as here. And I do know that there are some people who will say very clearly, I got clean on the screen.
Okay. Right. Okay. I like that. I got clean on the screen.
Look, somebody just raised their hand.
Clean and serene on the screen.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right, man. This has been absolutely wonderful that we get to share our experiences and hopes with the world, with the world and what we went through. Man. This is really a godsend, man. Thanks for inviting me.
I think also going through, I've been clean twice as long, matter of fact, more than twice as long as I used. I used only for 16 years. I got clean at I was 31 years old. I've been clean longer than I was alive before coming to the program. Okay? I've been clean twice as longer than I used. And here I am now at this age of my life. I'm raising my 5-year-old grandson. And a lot of times I want to go to a meeting forget the pandemic. I want to go to a physical meeting. I would not be able to find a babysitter. Right now, he's in the other room. I'm here.
Yeah.
He's in the other room having fun playing. I'm here getting my spirit filled.
You carried an amazing message today and we're so grateful. Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful for this segment.